Good evening, guys. In today's tutorial, I'll be taking us on how to cut our pant trouser with a precise measurement. Um, for the sake of this tutorial, I'll be making use of this measurement. Here, I have my waist to be 40 and a half. I have my laps to be 29 and a half. My round nail to be 20 and a half. My calf to be 19. Why my calf length is 26. My round foot is 14. My trouser length is 39 and my half length is 21. Now remember I explained what the half length means. The half length simply means the length from the waist to the nail region of the pant. That is the half length. So this is the measurement we are going to be working with today. Um, without wasting much of our time, I think we're going to start. I'm just going to stick this to the wall so I'll be able to look at it with ease and make reference to it while cutting. All right, there we go. Now the first step or the first thing we need to know when cutting is that whenever we're cutting a fabric, we always cut using the wrong side of the fabric. Now, why this is the fabric has two faces. This is the right side of the fabric and this is the wrong side of the fabric. Now, why some tailors would always want to differentiate between the right side and the wrong side of the fabric with their tailor's chalk. Why some wouldn't want to do that? They'll just cut straight since they will be calibrating the fabric with their chalk. But for the sake of this tutorial, I want to differentiate between the right side of the fabric and the wrong side. Of course, the wrong side of the fabric is this part that I just calibrated with my tailor's chalk. Now let us start. Now remember I told us initially in my last tutorial that whenever cutting a fabric, we always cut the fabric using the wrong side of the fabric. The reason is because we wouldn't want the calibrations on the fabric to appear in front of the cloth after sewing. So the reason why we don't cut or draft using the front or the right side of the fabric is that we don't want all these calibrations and all these markings to appear on that cloth after sewing. So we'll rather do it at the back, then draft and cut. Now let's start. First of all, I'm going to fold my fabric into two with the wrong side of the fabric facing upwards. Now I've succeeded in having getting my fabric with the wrong side of it facing upwards, where I'm going to be making my calibrations on. Now, one thing you must know is that this is the yardage of this fabric. This is the yardage of this fabric. The yardage of the fabric is used to cut the length of the trouser. Why this is the yardage of the fabric, this is the width of the fabric, which is usually by 60. Now the yardage of the fabric depends on how many yards you've gotten for your trouser, and of course the yardage is usually dependent on the trouser length of the client which I'm making the trouser for. So this is my yardage, why this is the width of my fabric, which is by 60. Now let's start. First of all, I usually start with my using my ruler to map out a starting line. Now remember I told us that I folded this fabric into two, and of course while marking this starting line I'm going to consider the part below to make sure that they are in line with each other. I think the white chalk will be better. Now this is my starting line. I'm going to draw another line on this part. There's actually a line on this fabric which I'm going to use, but for this for the sake of the video, I'm going to use this Telos chalk so that the line will be very pronounced for all of us to see it. Good. Now remember I told us we'll be working with some measurements I already outlined. Now we are going to be working with a trouser length of 39. So first of all, I'm going to get my trouser length from the starting point. Now my trouser length is 39. So I'm going to measure starting from here, and I'm going to mark 39 on the exact. This is 37, 38, 39. This is 39. Now I will be marking on two places of the fabric so that I can always get a straight line. Mind you, if I have my set square, I will just use my set square to get a straight line. But because I don't have my set square here, I'll be marking on two sides of the fabric so that I can get a very straight line. This is 39. Now, after the 39, I am going to mark another 2 inches after my 39. You can actually decide to do that together. While you mark your 39, you can mark 41, which is 2 inches after 39. Now, this 2 inches is for your hemming allowance. This is for your hemming, your trouser hemming allowance. Now, I'm going to join these lines together. Please, if you've not subscribed to my YouTube channel, I implore you to click on the subscribe button, turn on your notifications, and like this video if you learn anything from it. So why this is my trouser length 39, this is 2 inches for the hemming allowance. Now in between the trouser length, there are some other lengths we are going to consider, which first is the crotch length. Now the crotch length is usually where the laps falls in. So how do we get our crotch length? Now our crotch length is usually our waist divided by 4 plus 1. Our waist divided by 4 plus 1. Now remember I told us we'll be working with a waist of 40 and a half. So 40 and a half divided by 4 will be giving us 10.1 plus an extra 1 inch. So we'll be having 11.1 inch. That will be our crotch. So I'm going to measure from here, from the top. I'm going to measure 11.1. So this is my 11 inches and just a little bit. So this is 11.1. I'm going to do the same thing here. This is my 11.1. Now I'm going to join them together. Now this is my crotch. This is my crotch height, or should I say my crotch length. And my crotch length is where my laps is going to fall on. Now remember the crotch length they always depend on the waist. So whatever waist it is you are working on, just divide the waist by 4 and add it 1 inch. That will give you your crotch length. Then the next thing is our nail. We have our nail to be 20 and a half. That is our nail circumference. But then for us to get where our nail circumference is going to fall on, we have to consider the half length, which I already told us that the half length is the length from the waist to the nail region. Now half length from our measurement is 21. So I'm going to mark 21. From here, I'm going to mark 21. This is 21, which is our half length. So this is 21. So I'm going to still join them together. Now the next thing I'm going to consider is my calf, because I have the calf measurement of my clients which I'll be working on. Now the calf length of my client is 26, while the calf circumference is 19. So I'm going to consider the calf length first. Now the calf length, now even if I don't have the calf length of my client, always know that calf length, that the distance between the nail, the half length, which is the nail region, and the calf length is usually 5 to 6 inches for an average adult. Usually 5 to 6 inches for an average adult. Now, considering what I have on my measurement here, I have the half length to be 21 and the calf length to be 26. You now notice from my measurement here, the difference or the distance between the half length and the calf length is 5 inches. But then it depends. All this calf length and half length depends on how tall or average or short your client is. For a very tall person, you could use 6 inches starting from the half length. Now, for an average person or a short person, you can use 5 inches. So because I measured my client, I measured the half length of my client is 26. So I'm going to use 26 on the exact. But what I usually advise tell us is this: take measurement of your client's calf length, so you cannot just assume measurements. This is 26. When you have the opportunity to take measurements, take full measurements, so you don't have to assume, unless the client is the one sending you the measurement and the client, um unfortunately for the client, he couldn't get all his body statistics. That is where you assume some certain things. But if you are opportune to meet the client one-on-one, please take full measurements. So this is my half length for my knee region. This is my calf length for my calf circumference. Now we've succeeded in marking all the different regions of our trouser. Now the next thing is to apply the measurement we have on the fabric. Now first of all, I'm going to give, now because your waist and your hip region does not align on the same line, I'm going to give a ½ inch allowance here first. I'm going to give a ½ inch allowance from the top, from the waist. Now, after marking this ½ inch allowance, I'm now going to apply my waist. My waist is 40 and a half. And of course, because the trouser is divided into 4 parts, that means I'll be dividing this waist into 4. And that will give us, we already did that before, that will give us 10.1. Now I'm going to add 1 inch allowance to that to get 11.1. So I'm going to mark my 11.1. This is my 11.1. Now the secret is this. Let me just drop a secret to us, a hint. Whatever you get as your crotch length is what you are actually going to use for your waist. The reason is simple, because the waist is divided by 4 plus 1, while the crotch length is divided by 4 plus 1. So it's that very simple. So whatever it is, if you are marking your waist first, that means whatever it is you get for your waist is what you're going to apply on the crotch length. Or if you're marking your crotch length first, whatever it is you get for your crotch length is what you're going to apply for your waist. So it is just that very simple. That's the secret to the waistline and the crotch length. Now, remember I told us that the crotch length is where our laps is going to fall on. So our laps here is 29 and a half. Now, because the laps is divided into 2, of course, this laps is different, this laps is different. Now, each of the laps has 2 fabrics joining together to form one lap. So we're going to divide our laps here by 2. So because we have 29 and a half as our laps, so I'll be doing 29.5 divided by 2. This will be giving us 14.75, which is 14.75. Now, I'm not going to give this allowance again. Remember, I told us that there is always a difference between our hip region and the crotch region to the crotch length from our waist. Now, I'm going to start from this region and measure 14.75. I believe by now we all should be very conversant with our tape where our 14 three quarter is going to fall on. This is my 14 three quarter. Now I'm going to mark my 14 three quarter. Now after marking my 14 three quarter, for the crotch curve, I'm going to come in by 1.5. Now some tailors usually come in by 2 inches. It is not wrong. It is actually right. Why some do come in by 2 inches, some coming by 1 3/4, some coming by 1.5. Me, I usually like to come in by 1.5. So this is my 1.5. Why this is my laps? This is my crotch curve. 1.5 for the crotch curve. Now, another thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to divide my laps into two. Now, because I have 14 3/4 here, dividing this 14 3/4 as well. Okay, let me do this using my tape. Now I have 14 3/4, which is here. Now dividing this 14 3/4 further into two, this is what I'm going to have. Now why I wanted to do it in my tape is so that while you are doing yours, it will be very easy for you. Now I'll be having 7 and 3 lines. Now what do I have to do? I'll just position this from the center and mark the 7 and 3 lines. Now I've succeeded in getting the half of my of my laps here. So this is the half. Now I'm going to apply this half down here so that I'll end up dividing this fabric into two. Now the same thing I applied here, 7 and few lines, I'm going to apply it here as well, and I'll mark. I'm going to apply it to my calf region, and I'll mark. And finally, I'm going to apply it to my foot and mark. Now, after doing this, I'm going to use my straight ruler to join them all together. Now, if you notice, all of these lines are going to meet together, and I'm going to join them. Now, remember there are different ways of cutting your pant trouser. The method I'm using now is one of the ways to cut the pant. There is another method which subsequently I'm going to be teaching us on. So I've ended up dividing this fabric into two. Now, of course, I've gotten my laps and I've gotten my crotch curve. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is apply my nail circumference, my calf circumference, and my foot circumference. Now, my nail circumference here is 20.5, dividing it by 2. Now, 20.5 dividing it by 2, 20.5 divided by 2, that should be giving us 10 1/4. Now, you now notice that we are going to map out 10 1/4 here. Now, because we already have our center point, what we are going to do further is divide 10 1/4 by 2. Now, this is my 10 1/4. I'm going to divide it further by 2 to give us what? 5 inches and the line. So I'm going to place my 5 inches and the line. Okay, this is my nail region. I'm going to place my 5 inches and the line here. I just hope you all are seeing what I'm doing. My 5 inches at the line here, and I'm going to mark the beginning, and I'm going to equally mark the end, which is my 10 1/4, which I calculated already. My nail circumference divided by 2. So you now notice that the distance from this place to here is the same thing as the distance from here to here. Okay, now the same thing, I'm going to apply it on my calf. Now my calf is 19. 19 divided by 2 is 9.5. So on my tape, 9.5, I'm going to further divide this 9.5 into 2 to get 4 3/4. So that is it. This is 4 3/4. So I'm going to place the 4 3/4 in the middle as well. Just the same thing I did here. I'm going to apply it here, and I'll mark the beginning, and I'll mark 9.5 here, the end, because our calf divided by 2 is 9.5. So you now notice that the distance from here to here is equally the distance from here to here. The same thing we are going to still apply on our foot. Our foot here, around foot here is 14. So 14 divided by 2 is 7. So 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. Right? 3.5. That's it. So I'm still going to place the 3.5 in the middle. And I'm going to mark here. Now I'm going to mark here as well. So you now notice that from here to here is 7, and the distance from here to here is the same as the distance from here to here. So the same thing. Remember, this is our foot, and this is just the foot hemming allowance. So whatever you have here is what we're going to have here as well. Please feel free to drop your questions on the comment section.